You know, learning to speak a new language confidently is, well, it's a lot less like taking a written exam and more like learning to dance in public.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. It requires you to get entirely comfortable with stumbling. I mean, you step on your partner's toes, you completely miss the beat. And the worst part is, it feels like everyone in the room is watching you do it.
It really is a uniquely vulnerable experience. I
Mhm.
mean, we spend our entire adult lives building up this facade of competence, and then suddenly,
You're reduced to pointing at a pastry in a bakery.
exactly, just pointing and hoping we don't accidentally insult the cashier's
Yeah,
ancestors.
exactly. And well, today for our deep dive, we are unpacking a masterclass in the psychology behind the exact vulnerability. Welcome, by the way, to you listening.
Glad to be here.
So, we're looking at a framework originally designed to help learners master English speaking confidence, but the underlying mechanisms really apply to almost any high stakes verbal scenario.
Yeah, they really do.
Whether you are learning a second language, or pitching a new idea to a skeptical board of directors, or just, I don't know, trying to speak up in a crowded room, the fear of sounding foolish is just a universal human roadblock.
It is.
So we are going to explore why perfectly articulate adults suddenly freeze, and more importantly, how to rewire that response. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Well, the core realization here is that true confidence isn't the absence of mistakes.
Hmm.
I mean, that is a complete myth.
Right.
Confidence is actually a fundamental shift in how we process and react to those mistakes. It's that moment you stop letting the fear of imperfection hijack your vocal cords.
Let's start right there, actually, at the root of the freeze. Why does the brain do this? You have these incredibly capable people professionals who can read dense, complex texts or effortlessly ace written exams who suddenly just turn to stone the second they have to speak to another human being.
Yeah, it's a total block.
It's like the hard drive is completely wiped.
To understand the freeze, we have to look at what is happening neurologically when you are put on the spot. It usually comes down to the fear of judgment.
Okay.
You know, that nagging internal voice asking, what if they laugh at me? What if I sound stupid?
Oh, I know it well.
Right. So when you step into a new, unpredictable social situation, your brain doesn't just perceive it as a minor discomfort. The amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, perceives that social pressure as an actual survival threat.
Wait, really? So your brain is reacting to, like, a Parisian waiter the same way it would react to a predator?
In a sense, yes.
Yeah.
Your body releases a spike of cortisol and adrenaline, and here is the mechanical problem.
Okay, what happens?
When the brain is in a fight, flight, or freeze state, it actively pulls resources away from the prefrontal cortex.
And that's the thinking part of the brain.
Exactly. That is the exact part of the brain responsible for high-level executive function, which includes retrieving complex vocabulary and constructing perfect grammar. So when you freeze, it isn't because you forgot the words. It's because the access bridge to those words has been temporarily shut down by your own nervous system.
That makes so much sense, but I want to push back on one of the common triggers people cite here.
Sure. Go ahead.
A lot of learners claim they freeze simply because of a perceived lack of vocabulary. They feel like they just don't have the words.
Mm.
But doesn't a lack of vocabulary genuinely limit you?
Whoa.
Because it feels like trying to paint a masterpiece with only 3 colors. Like, how are you supposed to express nuanced, complex thoughts without a massive mental dictionary?
It's a really common frustration, but it reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of what effective communication actually is in the real world.
So.
We often conflate complexity with clarity, and they are not the same thing. You do not need a massive vocabulary to speak confidently. In fact, relying on a massive vocabulary when you're nervous often backfires.
Because of the stress.
Because of cognitive overload, yeah. Let's look at how people try to overcompensate. A learner trying to sound advanced or polite might try to construct a sentence like, I would like to acquire some information regarding your return policy.
Right. Very formal.
Exactly. To say that correctly, your brain is juggling complex syntax, formal vocabulary, and pronunciation rules, all while under a perceived social threat.
That's a lot to process at once.
The cognitive load is massive, which creates a massive margin for error.
Right. You are walking a vocal tightrope. If you forget the word acquire, the whole sentence collapses, you panic, and the conversation just grinds to a halt.
Precisely. But if you simply say, can you tell me about returns? You have achieved the exact same goal.
Oh, that's much easier.
Right. You use simple foundational words. You painted the picture with the 3 colors you had, and the other person saw it perfectly clearly. The goal of speaking isn't to prove how many words you know.
It's just to be understood.
Exactly. is to transfer an idea from your brain to theirs. Clarity will always trump complexity.
So we freeze because we're trying to paint the Mona Lisa under pressure, when a simple stick figure would get the point across perfectly well.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
That's a massive relief, actually. But since the root of this freeze-up is psychological, this fear of imperfection and the amygdala hijacking our brain, it makes sense that the first step to fixing it isn't memorizing more grammar rules.
Right.
We have to change the internal narrative that triggers the threat response in the first place.
And that requires a really significant mindset shift. You have to consciously move your internal goalpost from perfection to progress. Linguists often point to children as the ultimate model for this.
Well, kids are completely fearless. I mean, they will talk to a wall.
Exactly. And we should ask why they are fearless. It isn't just neuroplasticity. It's because children have not yet developed a fragile, socially constructed ego.
They don't care if they look silly.
Right. They don't have a professional reputation to protect. They mispronounce words, they mix up tenses, and they don't feel an ounce of shame about it. And because they never stop trying to communicate, they get constant feedback and they learn rapidly. Adults lose that. We become hyper-aware of our self-image.
So how do we get that back?
To regain that rapid learning curve, we have to forcefully dismantle the idea that mistakes are embarrassing failures and reframe them as data points. Every mistake is just necessary friction on the way to fluency.
Which brings us to a really interesting psychological intervention for that inner critic. It's common to hear adults muttering, "My English is terrible," or "I'm so bad at this."
Constantly, yeah.
The antidote usually prescribed is positive self-talk, shifting to "I am improving every day." But there's a specific daily mirror trick that often gets recommended.
The mirror trick.
Yeah. You stand in front of a mirror every morning, make eye contact with yourself, and state a positive affirmation out loud, like, "I am a confident speaker." Now, here's where it gets really interesting, but I have to ask.
Go ahead.
Does this actually work? Because for a lot of people, that sounds incredibly cheesy, bordering on self-help cliche.
It absolutely sounds cliche. And look, you will feel ridiculous doing it the first few times.
I would definitely feel ridiculous.
But there is rigorous nervous system science behind why it works. Your internal monologue directly dictates your physiological state.
Really? Just thinking it.
Yes. When you silently tell yourself, "I can't do this, my language skills are terrible," you are actively signaling to your vagus nerve that you are in danger. Your heart rate increases, your breathing gets shallow, and we are back to the freeze response.
Wow. So you are basically preemptively programming your body to fail before you even walk out the front door.
Yes, exactly. By looking in the mirror and forcing yourself to articulate a positive statement out loud, you're creating an auditory and visual intervention.
Okay, so seeing and hearing it makes a difference.
Huge difference. Hearing your own voice speak calmly while looking into your own eyes activates the parasympathetic nervous system. It physically lowers your heart rate.
That's fascinating.
It tells your brain, we are safe. You are laying down a neurological baseline of calm, which makes you much less likely to spike into panic when you actually have to speak later in the day.
So it's like a warm-up for your nervous system.
Exactly. And the golden rule of this internal fix is that you must only compare your progress to who you were yesterday, never to native speakers or more advanced learners.
Because comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20 just triggers the threat response all over again.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've addressed the internal critic. We're lowering the physiological panic. We're prioritizing clarity over complexity. But eventually, you do have to physically get the words out.
You do.
How do we build the mechanics of speaking? Let's walk through some practical, everyday pillars of communication.
So mindset is the foundation, but action builds the house. The most crucial pillar is practicing out loud every single day. And the most effective way to do this is completely alone. You narrate your day to an empty room.
Right, so saying things out loud like, "I am making coffee, the mug is blue." But let's pause here. Imagine a 45-year-old chief financial officer walking around their kitchen describing their breakfast like a toddler.
It's a funny mental image.
It is. How does an adult overcome the sheer indignity of regressing to that level of basic expression?
By understanding what they are actually accomplishing mechanically. When you speak a new language, you are asking your facial muscles, your tongue, and your vocal cords to move in entirely new, unfamiliar patterns.
Okay.
It is a physical workout. When that CFO is narrating their breakfast, they aren't learning the word coffee. They already know it.
Right, they know the vocabulary.
They are training their motor cortex to form the sounds automatically. By doing it alone, you remove the social threat, allowing the brain to build physical muscle memory without anxiety.
Okay, that makes it much more palatable. It's not baby talk. It's vocal calisthenics.
Exactly.
Now, what about grammar? Because another common piece of advice is to focus entirely on fluency and flow rather than grammatical perfection.
Yes, that's a big one.
So what does this all mean for grammar? Are we just supposed to throw the rule book out the window entirely? If I keep saying he go instead of he goes and nobody corrects me because they get the gist, don't I permanently fossilize those errors?
It is a valid concern, but you have to compartmentalize your practice. When you are sitting at a desk with a textbook, absolutely focus on grammar. But in the moment of actual speaking, you must prioritize the flow of ideas.
Even if it's wrong.
Yes. If you stop mid-sentence to mentally search a database for the perfect verb conjugation, you create a cognitive traffic jam. You kill the momentum, you make the other person wait, and you spike your own anxiety.
That makes sense.
You can fix the he goes later in your isolated practice. In live performance, if the listener understands your point, the language is doing its job.
Right, you can't correct a conversation that isn't happening.
Exactly. Keep the momentum going.
Mm.
And this ties directly into how we use our bodies, actually.
Uh-huh.
We often think of confident body language, smiling, making eye contact, using hand gestures, as a byproduct of feeling confident. You feel good, so you stand tall.
Right, it's an outward reflection of an inward state.
It is, but cognitive psychology shows us it is a two-way street. It's called the facial feedback hypothesis, or embodied cognition. Your brain takes cues from your body to determine how it should feel.
Wait, so faking it actually works?
It does. If you
Yeah.
force yourself to physically smile, make eye contact, and use expansive hand gestures, your brain registers those physical actions and essentially says, well, I wouldn't be smiling and gesturing if I was being chased by a bear, so I must be safe. It actively downregulates your anxiety.
Wow, so you are reverse engineering confidence through your posture.
Exactly.
And I imagine slowing down your breathing plays into that as well, because when we are nervous, the instinct is to rush. We want the uncomfortable spotlight off of us as fast as possible, so we speak at lightning speed.
Which is the worst thing you can do, because rushing guarantees you will trip over your words, which triggers more panic.
A vicious cycle.
Right. Deliberately slowing your pace and taking deep breaths activates that vagus nerve we talked about. It makes you sound more thoughtful, and more importantly, it gives your listener a better chance to actually process what you're saying.
And when they understand you, that helps, right?
Huge help.
Mm-hmm.
When you see them nodding and understanding, it creates a positive feedback loop that builds genuine confidence.
So narrating alone for muscle memory, prioritizing momentum over grammar, reverse engineering calm through body language, and slowing down, those are incredibly powerful tools.
They are the foundation.
But having those tools in a vacuum is one thing. The real world is chaotic. Your anxiety levels will swing wildly depending on who you are talking to and where you are. How do we navigate different real-world contexts?
Context dictates strategy. Let's start with speaking to strangers in public, asking for directions or ordering at a restaurant.
The classic tourist scenarios.
Exactly. The strategy here is radical simplicity. Do not try to construct a polite, flowing paragraph.
Excuse me, I would be so grateful if you could point me toward the train station. That's too much.
Just skip to the point.
Yes, just ask, where is the train station?
But what if they reply at 100 miles an hour using local slang and you have no idea what they just said?
You have to shed the fear of asking for repetition. Could you say that again slower? Is a perfectly acceptable response. And the psychological key here is empathy.
How so?
Think about it from the other side. When a tourist comes up to you and tries to speak your native language, do you stand there harshly judging their verb tenses?
Oh, never. Usually, I'm just impressed they're making the effort and I want to help them find the words so we can figure it out.
That is the empathy factor. You have to remember that 99% of the time, the stranger you are talking to is operating with that exact same helpful mindset.
They aren't grading you.
Exactly. They are not waiting for you to fail. They are actively rooting for you to succeed. Remembering that neutralizes the perceived threat. That is a very comforting thought, but let's scale up the difficulty.
Okay, let's do it.
What about group conversations? Because to me, a group chat in a new language feels like the ultimate boss battle. You have multiple people talking over each other, the topic changes every 5 seconds, there are cultural references. The mental overload is just staggering.
It is arguably the most cognitively demanding scenario. The strategy for groups is to completely relieve yourself of the pressure to lead or steer the conversation.
Just take a back seat.
Yes, be passenger first. Listen deeply to follow the thread, and when you do jump in, use short agreements to signal participation without overextending your cognitive load. Things like, "That's an interesting point," or "I totally agree."
You know, there is a specific technique for this that I find brilliant. It's sometimes called the group trick. It's when you repeat a fragment of what the last person just said before adding your own brief opinion. So if someone says, "I think remote work is destroying office culture," you reply, "I agree with you that remote work is changing office culture, but I think it gives people more time with their families."
That is a phenomenal technique. Why do you find it so effective?
Well, I love that trick of repeating the last person's point because it's like catching a heavy medicine ball.
A medicine ball.
Yeah. If someone throws a heavy ball at you, you don't instantly try to hurl it back midair. You catch it, you hold it against your chest for a second to balance your feet, and then you throw it back. Repeating their phrase buys your brain crucial processing time.
That is a great analogy.
It provides a neurological buffer. Plus, you get to reuse the vocabulary they just handed you, so you aren't searching for words from scratch, and it makes the other person feel deeply heard.
It anchors you in the conversation using their momentum. It's incredibly smart. Now, moving from casual group settings to high-stakes formal situations, job interviews, academic presentations, important meetings, you can't just be a passenger here. The stakes are real.
Yeah, you definitely can't just wing a job interview in a second language.
No, you can't. And the primary defense against the inevitable adrenaline dump in these settings is obsessive preparation. You anticipate the questions, write down your key points, and critically, you practice saying them out loud repeatedly to build that motor cortex memory.
Doing the vocal workout again.
Exactly. When the adrenaline hits in the interview, your brain will try to rush. You have to consciously rely on good posture and a slow, deliberate pace to counteract your own biology.
So we have strategies for the street, the dinner party, and the boardroom. But how do we make these skills permanent? How do you reach a point where you don't have to consciously think about cognitive load and vagus nerves every time you open your mouth?
Well, you need daily habits that take just 10 to 15 minutes. Consistency is what permanently lowers the threat response.
Like the narrating exercise we mentioned.
Exactly. We already mentioned narrating your daily routine to yourself. The second daily habit is called shadowing, which is a highly regarded technique in applied linguistics.
Walk me through exactly how shadowing works, because it sounds a bit strange at first.
Shadowing is when you listen to a native speaker on an audiobook, a podcast, or a YouTube video, and you repeat what they're saying out loud almost immediately after they say it. You are trailing them by a fraction of a second, mimicking their exact intonation, rhythm, and pacing.
Almost like singing along to a song on the radio, but you are mimicking the melody of conversation. How does this help?
It leverages mirror neurons and taps into the brain's phonological loop. When you are shadowing, you aren't trying to generate your own thoughts, so the analytical, anxious part of your brain is bypassed.
Oh, so you don't freeze because you aren't thinking of what to say.
Right. You are simply mirroring. It trains your mouth to handle the physical rhythm of the language effortlessly, so that when you do need to generate your own thoughts later, the physical machinery is already warmed up and ready.
That is fascinating. It's a backdoor into fluency. Another habit often recommended is reading out loud, which similarly trains the motor cortex. But it's the final habit that I really have to push back on, and I mean really push back.
Uh-oh, let's hear it.
Recording yourself speaking and then listening back to it. Honestly, even in my native language, hearing a recording of my own voice, it just ruins my day.
It's universally tough, yes.
It is universally cringeworthy. Recording yourself sounds like absolute torture for most people. Why on earth would we subject ourselves to the torture of hearing our own voice struggling, stammering, and making mistakes in a new language? Doesn't that just reinforce the inner critic?
It is uncomfortable, without a doubt. It feels terrible at first,
Mhm.
but the psychological mechanism at play here is systematic desensitization.
Getting used to the discomfort.
Exactly. You have to expose yourself to the thing you fear to remove its power. More importantly, recording yourself provides the one thing an anxious brain desperately needs:
Which is...
objective proof.
But anxiety skews our perception entirely. If I hate the sound of my own voice, listening to it is just going to make me want to quit altogether.
In the short term, maybe. But if you rely solely on your memory of a conversation, your inner critic will always rewrite history to make you sound worse than you actually were.
Oh, that's so true. I always think I bombed.
Right. You will always think you sounded foolish. But a recording is an objective baseline. If you record yourself speaking for 1 minute on day 1 and then do it again on day 30 and play them back to back, the improvement is undeniable.
You can't argue with the tape.
You can't. It replaces vague, nagging anxieties with concrete, auditory evidence of your progress. It is the ultimate weapon to silence the inner critic because you can literally hear yourself evolving.
So you are building an undeniable portfolio of your own success. The tape doesn't lie, even if it makes you wince initially. The long-term payoff of knowing for an absolute fact that you are getting better is worth the temporary discomfort.
Precisely. The discomfort is the price of admission for confidence.
Wow. So, to synthesize all of this for you listening today, confidence isn't a magical state of perfection that descends from the sky once you memorize a dictionary. It is an active daily choice.
Absolutely.
It is a house built on the foundation of psychological regulation, simplicity in speech, and most importantly, the willingness to be imperfect out loud.
Do not wait for the perfect moment or the perfect vocabulary level to start speaking, because that moment simply does not exist.
Yeah.
Take just one habit from this deep dive, whether it's the 15-minute shadowing exercise, narrating your morning coffee routine, or employing the group trick, and use it today.
Yeah, get out there and start dancing in public, even if you step on a few toes. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own, something that builds on that profound empathy we discussed earlier.
Okay.
We spend so much time obsessing over how we sound when we speak a new language. But what if the ultimate reward of overcoming this fear isn't just about making yourself understood?
That is a very intriguing angle.
Right. Think about the mechanics of what you are doing, the vulnerability it takes to stumble through a broken sentence, the patience you have to beg from the stranger listening to you, the sheer cognitive effort required just to connect on a basic human level. What if that entire grueling process actually makes you a far better, more patient, and deeply empathetic listener when you are back in your own native tongue?
Wow.
You learn firsthand what it feels like to struggle to be heard, and that fundamentally changes how you listen to everyone else.
That is a beautiful perspective. The journey of finding your voice in a new language ultimately refines how you use your ears in every language.
It absolutely does. Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery today. Take a deep breath, keep it simple, and don't be afraid to stumble a little out there. We will catch you on the next deep dive.